and welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I'll be your host for December. Silent night. Jingle, 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 jingle. It's almost here. It's almost Christmas time, which is always very, very exciting. There's not much longer to go. We're probably about halfway through December by the time this kind of goes out for everybody, all you lovely people listening out there. A little while ago, this person came on the show to chat about their game, and then they went on and was doing kind of well through Halloween. Did this little Halloween special that kind of did quite well, and then the subject of Pogs came up, and ever since then, all that's happened is kind of constant abuse to the point that even tonight, they've got a bag of Pogs right next to them. Do you hear that? Do you hear what I've got to put up with? So joining me, they're back from Emmerse Studios. I don't know why I've just even said yes. Should have cancelled, but anyway, you can't have everything. It's Emma May. Hiya.
Hello. I've got a cold.
I know. It's quite funny. It's not. I shouldn't be laughing, but you did, you did promise you were going to, like, next time you're on the show, you're going to apologise for all the Pog stuff, so I'm waiting for your apology.
Did I say that?
No.
I don't think I said that.
No, you didn't say that. Not at all. Not even on the slightest. Better say hello to everybody who's out there. Hello, everybody. The reason that we do this is because there's not enough podcasts out there. Podcasts. You even got me saying it. There's not enough podcasts out there about board games and people involved in tabletop. Well, there probably is, but it doesn't matter. And the other reason that we do this is stop. And the other reason that we do this is because for some reason, at the end of the last show, I went, oh yeah, it'd be great to have them back on again. And, so I had to keep my obligations. So here we go. But it's been a busy time.
Sexual harassment.
It
has.
It's been busy. It kind of got into busy times.
The amount of times I had to talk about Pogs to you has been so stressful.
It's not that, you got everybody else involved in Team Trevor as well.
It caught on so well.
You got what?
And now I have my Pogs. I got them out of the attic, and I couldn't remember how. Do you remember Charlie Chalk?
Charlie
Chalk made Pogs.
Yeah, the funny way of walking and a funny way of chalking. Charlie Chalk landed on an island. Now he's living in a jungle. And I remember the theme tune. It's now stuck in my head.
I didn't even know it had a theme tune. Did they make a TV show out of it? I remember it was a pub.
It's a TV show.
Is it? It was a pub.
It's definitely a TV show.
I thought it was a character for a pub.
Oh my word, it's not. It's definitely a TV show. There is a thing called Charlie Chalk, which is a TV show. I'm telling you. It definitely exists. And
well, I've got a Pog of Charlie Chalk.
Have you? Does he got like a kind of a bowler hat on and kind of like a reddish nose, and he's wearing kind of like, is it a yellowy kind of bow tie or something like that?
Almost got it, yeah.
Wow. This is just going to drive me insane. Right. Anyway, I'm going to Google this. You're going to tell the good people about. Now we spoke just before Quirk Hallows kind of was launched.
Yes. Well, we spoke in September.
We did.
And I was saying to you that I was supposed to be making the game, and I didn't know whether I would or not because I promised people I would, and then I was very, very busy, and I was very scared to launch a campaign.
Mm-hmm. But you went ahead anyway. I mean, regardless, you just kind of dived in, and Quirk Hallows became a thing. And you decided, you went for the unusual route. Well, it doesn't seem to be the unusual route nowadays because it seems to be the latest fashion. That you kind of ran the campaign for a fairly limited kind of period of time, which was quite unusual. He's got a purple hat, hasn't he? And it looks like eyes on his hat. Oh, it's like 2 C's. Of course it is. He's got a red nose.
Yeah, Charlie Chalk.
Yeah. So I'm just going
to bring everything back in your podcast.
It's just like this. Welcome to Nostalgia Hour. And after the break, we'll be bringing back Bag Puss. Soft furry fat puss. Anyway. But how long did you run the campaign for? Was it only like 20 days or something like that? Wasn't that long, was it?
13 days it was. So I really want to talk about Pogs, because there's a lot of these characters on here that look like Ren and Stimpy.
I don't know who Ren and Stimpy is. I do.
Oh my god, Nickelodeon.
I do know who Ren and Stimpy is. It used to be, except it wasn't Nickelodeon, it used to be on BBC Two.
And Rocko's Modern Life. Very sort of cartoons.
Yeah, well, BBC Two went through like a phase of getting in a lot of the Ralph Bakshi stuff at the time, and the first thing they brought in was kind of like Mighty Mouse. So there was like, I think it was almost like, everybody kind of looks at like, was it Gumball and Adventure Time and everything like that is kind of mad and zany and, just completely out there. At the time, it's like Mighty Mouse came out and it was Ren and Stimpy, and they were kind of like the first starts to where cartoons started to get kind of weird and zany. And they would use like,
I like that.
They'd have animation and then they cut to stills of really kind of detailed, well watercoloured paints of like, the back of Ren's head or something like that, kind of like covered in fleas, and it was like kind of all this magical stuff. But you've got a pile of Pogs.
Gross, but amazing.
How many Pogs you got?
I don't actually have that many because because it was my sister's game.
All right.
And she had the board game, and to be honest, I probably never knew how to play it at the time. We just collected them because every single shop, like local shop, would have them, and you'd buy them and collect them, kind of like Pokemon cards. So I've got a load of Slammers, and then I've got a load of Pogs, which have loads of different kind of cartoon characters.
Are Slammers like the heavier ones?
Yeah.
I never played this game.
And then you slam the top of the Pogs, and then any that fall out of the circle or something. I don't really know how to play. But Tom from Red Wow Games does. He was looking it up.
Yes, we had a discussion, me and Tom, about him and his Pog thing. He was one of the main. He kind of defended himself on the podcast to say that he wasn't kind of involved in the whole Pog thing. But he definitely was involved, I reckon. He definitely had something to do with it. Pretty sure. But he did. I think he went on to explain. And then I kind of put him accidentally on the defensive. I didn't mean to, Tom. You are lovely. Tom's been brilliant. Yeah, but no, I still don't. I know you kind of went, oh look, here's the board game. And I was like, okay. But I was expecting you to have like thousands of them. I was expecting for you to be sitting on a throne of Pogs.
I'm not that much of a collector, to be honest. Letting the side down.
It's not bad. I don't know. Hallows was like a...
Yeah, back on topic.
There's no topics. This is, you're bound to... If you've listened for the last... How many other episodes, it's like, if I could actually say the last couple of 100, which just really sounds sad now. It's like, I've got more episodes than I've got Pogs, basically. But that was a real kind of... It was kind of like a drama. It was a bit squeaky bum time towards the end, because it kind of cruised along. And was it right up to like the last couple hours that you kind of funded, basically?
Oh my god, yeah, it was so scary. We weren't hitting our target for a lot of the time, and then near the end, we got to 2499, and someone put a pound in. Like in the last 10 minutes, and I had my fingers on the desk, gripping the desk. My heart was pounding through my chest, and I was just like, "Is it going to happen? Is it going to knock over?" And someone's like, cancelled their pen at the last second. And I don't know what it is, but everything, like once the campaign finished, everything went white.
Yeah.
And it was like, "Congratulations, you funded on £2,512." I was like, "Who's the person that put £12?" It was on 2,500 at the last minute.
It wasn't me, because I was cackling along.
No, I know who it is.
I was like laughing. I was like,
But I had so many people watching, because I had the Google analytics on, so I could see there were so many people watching it. And I've met up with people since the campaign, and they literally said, I had my button ready to put the rest of the money in if it wasn't going to do it. So it's really lovely, like the amount of support that I had around it.
Yeah, but that's because you've always kind of supported people, though. I mean, we said this in the last show, that the reason that we kind of wanted you back on was that you've always kind of built your network around kind of speaking to people and kind of connecting up with people and, you know, things like that. So I think when it comes to, I mean, there's Team Trevor, but it kind of goes beyond that. So when you're kind of like, everybody kind of keeps an eye and kind of looks after people, I think that's always kind of like a fairly nice thing. But we're now in December, and everybody's got their game.
They have. So the turnaround on it was, so I created most of the artwork in August in my sketchbook, but I needed to digitise a lot of it in October. So I had all the character cards drawn in my sketchbook, but nothing else. And so about a day and a half, I probably digitised a lot of the cards. I spent 8 days putting the page together for Kickstarter and somewhat promoting it. And then we launched 13 days. When we funded, I literally started getting print ready. Yeah. We printed within 2 weeks. So it was like 1 week to get print ready and send all the files over and approve everything. And then 2 weeks on the print run, along with liaising with the board game documentary team to get the film done. And then 2 weeks later, they arrived, and over the weekend I packed everything and sent it out on the Monday. And then it arrived that week for most people in the UK. So we're still waiting for people in America, I think, to get theirs, but it's that time of year, so I don't know when they will. Are you
just sending stuff out through Royal Mail to America then? Is that not, like, really expensive?
Yeah. No, because the game's only small.
Oh, right, so it doesn't
weigh over a certain amount. Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. Because it means that people are obviously, as you said, it's just the kind of the time thing for getting stuff over to America at the time, whether there's going to potentially be a backlog. That's why.
Yeah, so the whole thing I was done in about 7 weeks, from creating the game through to sending it out.
But during that time, though, you've had other things kind of going on with Quirk.
Oh yeah, I've always got stuff going on in the background. Always got stuff going on
in the background. Because at the end, because the last time we spoke, we kind of like finished the show, and you went, could you kind of... You said, could you delete that bit? And I got confused and thought you meant about an announcement, so I got rid of that, and then I had to bring it back in again. And then you're like, here's...
It sounds really weird,
I've got this amazing announcement that I'm going to give you, but I can't tell you what the amazing announcement is. And it's like, alright, and you'd made a video, and then you'd filmed the video, and you'd covered certain parts to say that you were going to hide it. You couldn't say.
Yeah.
Can you say now?
Yeah. I can. I haven't released that video. It's just something I did. I said to people I'd start vlogging some of my little adventures and the shows I go to and what happens. And that was kind of like after the show, the emotions I was going through, the things that actually happened at that show. But because something really big happened, I couldn't really say it. But I want people to know the kind of stuff that does happen and the work that goes into it to make it happen. But at the same time, I can't say too much because I'm still on this journey and I'm still building and developing those relationships with people. So it's not something I can completely tell people how to do yet. But the big news, obviously, as people know, was Waterstones. So we're in 5 shops at the moment, possibly more.
That's amazing. I mean, I don't want to sound sarcastic. I just went, you don't want to sound sarcastic, but I sounded sarcastic as opposed to long. But I mean...
No, it's fine. I had a talk with my so I've got a mentor. So I've got a mentor in business, and I sat down with her the other day and had a chat, and I just casually went, and of course we're in Waterstones and all that sort of stuff, and she's like, oh my god, you're in Waterstones now. It's like, I swore I told you. She's like, no, the last time you told me it was like it was going to happen, but you didn't know when it was going to happen.
How? I mean, that. Is there a sense of kind of like, well, this is actually kind of happening, or is it a case that, I guess, if it's 5 stores, then they're only going to take a kind of a certain amount. So are you still kind of in the proving ground, or is this to see kind of, well,
we are, yeah.
Let's see how this sells. Let's see how this works.
But also the reason I couldn't say is because I was at a show and I got to pitch directly to the buyer. And whilst you're at a show, it's amazing. I had such an awesome time because I met so many people who were interested in Quirk who said, yeah, we'll make orders. But then you go through the stress of once you finish the show, you then need to chase those people up. So I've taken on my second biggest retailer as well. And it took me about 2 months to close the deal from that show. Whilst I was also running a Kickstarter, being in Germany, doing other shows. There's that on top. So yeah, I couldn't really say much about like the Waterzone stuff because it was like, this is big news and they're interested, but in 2 months' time something else could come out and fill that shelf space, because that's the kind of thing you're looking at is your game, is it relevant enough to actually have shop space? Yeah. Because they've only got a limited amount of shelf space. That they
seem to be expanding it though, because I mean, the last couple of times I've been in Waterstones, I mean, it started off with the occasional copy of, like, say, Dixit and Scotland Yard, but you go in now, and they certainly, if there's like, say, I guess a kind of a banner film coming out like Star Wars, then they certainly seem to be going out and picking up copies of, you know, they seem to be chapping on Fantasy Flight's door and saying, well, what games do you have that you can potentially sell? I've seen Fallout in there. I've seen I guess the Waterstones where I am seems to be kind of incredibly well stocked. They're also quite, I hate to say it, but they're also quite good at kind of discounting games, because I guess for a lot of people, it's not, you wouldn't necessarily think of going in there to get like a heavier game. So I've seen like Fallout, the new Fallout game kind of was dropped in price quite quickly, I guess, because it wasn't kind of selling, so it was kind of like a snappable up material. But I can see why the buyer kind of looked at your thing and went, yeah, this is worthwhile, kind of giving it a chance, because it's it's really accessible, and it seems to kind of fit within the kind of the market where they're heading. They're always stocking Pokemon, they're always stocking Magic, they're always stocking kind of a lot of these, I guess, games that people would just pick up, you know, like Quirk, for kind of a laugh. Because that's, so, I mean, have you had any reports back as to how that's going, or have you got to wait, like, does it run for 6 months, does it run for 2 months? I mean, how long do you get to kind of be on trial, basically?
Well, you're saying it's on trial. I'm not 100% sure it's on trial.
Right.
But it's Christmas, so yeah. I'm sure people will pick it up and buy it, or like read the back of it and decide to take a chance on it. Yeah. But I think we're only going to grow in the next year, because with the new news that I've just posted about, we got the recommended status for the Good Toy Guide. So what that means is that our games have been tested by children and observed by a professional in child's play and development, and they test it in at least four separate times with different children, and then they observe the results of that. And from that, they have scored Quirk high in fun, skill development, and ease of play, which is, I mean, we're recommended, and because there's two ways you can either get approved or you can get recommended, and we have been recommended by them. So that is like kind of testament to what Quirk is as in gameplay for families, and it's a highly respected organisation who test toys in the industry.
So how does that kind of affect, if you're going to pitch, I guess, to other places, then does that mean that it's easy for you to go in and say, right, okay, you should take this because it's got some officially kind of what you would say good reviews? It's not like you rocking up and saying, okay, I've got 5 YouTubers who've written, you know, they've filmed a video on it, you know.
Everything starts like that though. So that's what I was saying in the beginning is, you know, the Board Deck and Dice, his son rated it 10 out of 10 when he first played it, and they were skeptical when they first had it come through their door. Like, should we play this? Should we not play it? And his son said yes, and luckily he did, because that's kind of what started us off. And then he recommended me to a load of other people who also reviewed it, and from there that kind of starts a spiral. But it's nice because I'm now looking at the toy industry to be able to talk to buyers and say, yes, we are recommended by the Good Toy Guide, because that does hold some level of achievement somewhere. Yeah,
no, I mean, people look towards something that they recognise and they know. You know, if they're kind of considering kind of taking on. I get this all the time. I mean, in my job is like people, if a certain companies that are speaking to me and they're quite well known, the first thing they say is, well, what other well known brands do you kind of work with? And it's like, I work with these guys, and you've probably never heard of them, but they do kind of 6 figures a month on Amazon. But, you know, it's kind of like finding that relevancy. But if I drop like, oh, well, we currently work for XYZ, they go, oh, right, yeah, okay, well, I'm certainly kind of interested in having a further kind of conversation, because you seem to be taking it out of everybody, and this is no disrespect to anyone that I've spoken to before, but you seem to be taking it to as a different direction from most of the people that I speak to, in terms of how you're chasing it, how you're kind of developing the network, the kind of where you're going to and who you're kind of pitching to. You seem to have started off like, here's develop the game, and then let's see where we can push it and where we can get it to. And it just goes to show that, you know, you've put a ton of work into this, and it's kind of, it's starting to kind of get somewhere now, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I'm totally with you. I would never disrespect anybody else doing anything in this industry, because it's super hard. And if you look at games as a whole, it's like one of those things where, okay, this is my passion, I really enjoy it, but if you're looking at hobby-based games, there's a very hard entry point to be able to make that a consistent print cycle.
Yeah.
So most companies will end up making one game, second game, third game, they kickstart everything, and it seems to be a Kickstarter cycle.
Yeah.
And you can get really big and have a very dedicated audience that way. But I don't think that's a good path for me. And the way that I look at Quirk is that it is a mass market game. So it would be foolish of me to stay in hobbyist games, because hobbyist games kind of tend to not like Quirk as much, because it's a family game or it's a party game. Yeah. And you get some people that will literally rate it down, even not playing it, because they don't like the fact that it could be a mass market game. Mm-hmm. Because there's obviously this war between whether something in the shop is going to help the games industry or not. And I want to say I'm on the fence on this. I've got a very clear opinion of it. I absolutely hate when people are dragging other games down, even if they are made by big companies. It is frustrating, but at the same time, because the games industry is growing, this gives us more of an entry point for us to then start building our hobbyist games and developing even further with them and actually creating that niche. So I would never put anybody down in any space, because everything helps us.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I mentioned in the last show, the show before, I do so many, I'm so lost. But, you know, I was in just Tesco's the other day, which is, for you folk in America, it's like Walmart, except probably smaller. But they've got kind of like code names on the shelf. They've got Double on the shelf. They've got Risk now. They've got
they are starting,
you know, and you can see it. You can see it kind of trickle over. They used to occasionally have Magic. They definitely always had Pokemon, because it was guaranteed to be, you know, something the kids would definitely want. But I'm certainly starting to see kind of things like was it the Obama Llama and games like that, kind of coming into, you know, coming out on that shelf. And I was actually so surprised. It was like, I think it was Pandemic as well, because I pointed to, you know, I was in Tesla's, pointed to myself, I says, look, there's Pandemic. And he was like, this was one of the first games that we played together. He went, wow, that's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing for, there's going to be people that are going to take a chance on that game. And then by finding that game, they're then going to go, oh, well, we really enjoyed this. It was horrific to play and really, really tough, and we got our butts kicked at it.
That's the
but
thing.
If you go and type
Pandemic is...
Yeah, it's a gateway.
That's going to be the next. It's going to be the next Monopoly, but in this culture that is being built out of board game cafes and independent game designers.
Yeah, and it's interesting because what will happen is that person will go, I'm looking for games like Pandemic, and they'll do that Google search, and then that'll be them. You know, they'll be in the. I mean, that'll take them down a completely different rabbit hole. And the next thing they'll do, they'll be picking up kind of Small World, and then they'll be expanding into kind of a lot of other games that are kind of, you know, that are kind of out there. Do you still feel kind of like on the kind of the outskirts of the kind of the hobby, or do you kind of like still, well, you feel kind of more involved now than kind of where you were?
It's a bit of a weird one, because when I started I was hardly anywhere in the hobbyist games world. And the first UK Games Expo I did, nobody knew who I was. I didn't know anyone there. I literally set up a stall and didn't really talk to anyone, apart from the people that came and had a look at my game and demoed it. The second year, which was this year, my stand was on and off packed, had 3 tables. And so many people would walk past me and say hello or take a picture or shout my name from down the hall, and I'm just like, I don't like. The list is mainly from Twitter, just talking to so many people and supporting them online. And whilst I feel like I haven't integrated myself into the hobbyist industry where most people have started, because there's been people in the industry that have been in it so much longer than me. I've kind of from Twitter, as I've grown, found companies around me that have also grown or started at the same time, and we've kind of developed that little hub ourselves. So now I kind of do feel connected in that way, but at the same time, like you suggested, that I'm taking this in a completely different direction, and growing kind of out of the hobbyist market and into more of the toy market. So, I mean, the hobbyist market has helped me, but I do kind of still feel like I'm on the edge of it. And it's like the same with like my the games that I've been buying. Is I started off with having practically no games. I had like one red dice that I kept for a long time. I don't even know what game it came out of, but I liked dice, so I had this dice for ages. Dear. And now I've got like, I don't want to call it a game shelf. My business has expanded so much I had to buy a set of shelves to put my files on, but they also hold games. Yeah. So I mean, I start with very light games like Beast of Balance and Unlock. I don't know, it's not really a light game, but it is a light game.
Yeah, I like good.
Those. And now I've got things like, I've just brought stuffed tables. I brought that in September, and I've also been backing some of the bigger games, like Robin Hood. That one was on Kickstarter. There's another one. Yeah, it's coming out soon.
Did you get
City of Pogs? Is it called?
Yes, City of Gears. Yeah.
City of Gears is the one. So I'm waiting for that one to come in. I haven't actually had time to sit down with a bunch of friends to play it. And also, what's the other one? The little Epic Zombies I brought, and we got that out in Germany to play, and I started reading it and going, this is a huge game, and like it looks cool but it's huge, and I was like reading the instructions for a good 15 minutes till we decided actually let's play a party game because we don't have that much time. So yeah, I'm starting to expand and look at these other games, and my friend introduced me to Pandemic quite a while ago. And as you probably know, or most people know who've spoken to me, is I've got a strategy for building businesses and niching your products based on how Pandemic works. Yeah. I think I told you. I am just so excited about the concept of it, because I was like, oh my god, I just see ways in which you can strategize your business by looking at how other things work.
I've totally stolen that for work, by the way. It's totally become... Have you? Yeah, I've totally stolen it. Because you can understand... Okay, I'll give you... Let me give you an example, and I'm coughing away, and I just have to kind of get that.
But that's the reason I share it, so other people can use it.
No, I mean, I have got people that come on and say, look, okay, this is my business. I sell kind of like fencing, and it's like, okay, you know, and I'll be like, yeah, fencing, that's good. But then they say they want to be found in, say, Amazon for fencing. and I then tell them, okay, well, that's fine. But what is it you want? What is it you want? What is it you want people to find you kind of for? Well, fencing. But what could it be used for? And then they give me a list, and then we look at kind of based on the categorization within Amazon, where there's maybe not as much there's not as much competition, but there's a reasonable amount of traffic, and it kind of works really, really well. So I totally stole that off you, and people think I'm a genius for coming up with it, and it's really good. But
that's the strategy used based on Amazon. But the overall arching idea is based on pandemic and how pandemic works. So you take that one thing, and I know because I said that on the last podcast that we had, is how I niched and become a bestseller. But it's the pandemic model.
Yeah, no, it is, and you did it quite cleverly, which I've nicked as well. I just steal all of your stuff.
I think quite a few people have as well. But it's really good because what that means is you see other people who have started releasing their games and they are now climbing up the charts and they're making sales, and that's a good thing because it means they can start to grow their companies.
Yeah, exactly. But again, it's just it's one of these things that if you're just approaching things for the first time, you'd have no idea how to deal with it and how to actually kind of get it working as well, which is always
the problem is. I was going to say, the problem is people look at things in the most logical fashion. So they go, right, this is this, so this must be this.
Yes.
Rather than, this is this, but how could it be different?
Yeah.
But it's what you said is exactly how it works. I'm reading a new book at the moment, and I brought 10 new books, and I'm quite surprised because the books that I brought based on I want to learn something different so I can apply it to my business. I ended up buying 2 books that were really interesting to me, which are giving me strategies that I'm already using in my business. I'm just like, okay, well, this just validates what I'm doing and it's going to work. But Seth Godin, if I'm saying his name right, who writes a lot of like marketing material and ways of thinking in marketing, it's not him who said it, but there's a famous quote that says, if you're trying to sell a drill bit, people do not want a drill bit, they want a hole in the wall. But they don't just want a hole in the wall, they want to put some shelves up. Because what they want to do is organise their house. So what you have to do is sell an organised house with a shelf up to sell that drill bit. Which is what you were saying about fencing.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Like, you are selling fencing, but you're selling a secure garden.
Yeah, well, what I say to people is there's different levels of engagement with regards to the sales cycle. People are going to be listening to this and go, this has got nothing to do with board games. Listen, folks, sit down. You're getting educated here, right? But anyway, there's different aspects of the sales funnel. You've got the top aspect of the sales funnel, which is your tire kickers. So that'll be somebody who'll come on and just do a search on fencing because they've been told they need to get some fencing for the rabbit. Yeah. They need to build a run for the rabbit. In order to do that, they need to get some fencing. So they're going to tickle the keyboard and they're going to put in fencing into a search engine, whatever place they're going to be looking for it, and then certain results will come up. And then what they'll do is they will then maybe do a little bit of investigation away from the place that they're going to sell. And the next time they'll come back is that they'll be looking for, they realise that they need to get galvanised fencing because it's going to be outside. So that's what they do. They do a search, and instead of getting 120,000 results, they get 40,000 results. But then the next thing they realise is that they do a bit more research and they go into Rabbits Online or whatever, and they discover that the best type of fence they want is they only want a 2mm hole fence, because anything bigger than that and it can injure the rabbit because it can stick stuff through there, and anything smaller than that is more difficult to manipulate and do stuff with. So that then they go back and they say, okay, I'm looking for galvanised steel fencing 2mm, and that takes the results down to 1200, and that's and then you can do it again and you eventually get it down to the point where you come up and there's only 50 results, and then it's just a case of how well you sell your concept to the customer in order to sell. So if you can say our fencing is ideal for people who are looking to use it for runs for rabbits, that person's going, excellent, I'm sold, I'm buying some. And that's how it kind of works, basically.
Can I just add something?
Of course you can.
A couple of conversations have come up recently about how you sell your product, and the words that you use, because words are so important. I started working with someone at the beginning of November who changed all my copy, and I know I said it in one of my Kickstarter updates, and then you messaged me and said, "Oh, who's this person that's doing this?" But we changed my entire copy on Amazon. Now I sell it selling pretty well on Amazon anyway, and we changed my copy. Within that day, I doubled my sales because of the way that it's written. And I don't want to give too much away on this because it's not actually. I don't want to plagiarise anyone else's work by saying what they said to me. I do in closed conversations, but not. I don't want to do it publicly because it's not mine. But it is very important how you look at how you sell to your customer, and it's the same way that I've built Quirk from a concept to getting it into Waterstones and having professionals review it and get the same results as I've always got when I go and test things. And it is basically the only way I can tell you without giving away their stuff is when you're testing it with people or looking at how people buy, they buy differently to how you sell it. So a good way to be able to do this is to go into a shop, look at something you're interested in, and ask the questions to yourself of why am I interested in this? What am I doing when I look at this product? What are the questions I ask myself, so that you can then look at your product and think, people are doing that to my product? Because some of the first things you do when you pick up a product is when you look at the box, then you read the description on the back. And I've watched people pick up my box and immediately they flip over and read the back. Even though if I'm standing there, I could tell them what it was about.
Yeah.
But I let them stop and read the back because I want to see if they understand what I've written. Because if they don't, they'll be asking me questions. And if they ask me questions, then that's what I then have to change when I do my updates.
Oh, yeah. No, that's so important. I mean, I think The Giant Brain, Ian McAllister, did a fantastic piece recently on preview copies. And one of the things that comes up again and again and again is rule books. And it's a case that, and we've had a discussion. And I, in turn, I've actually spoken to a few people about the rule books in terms of, how they write them, because that's just, because I used to write training manuals for banks. And if you can explain bank procedures, you can explain anything at all. But anyway, the discussion was quite simple, is that there's a big difference between the playtesting side of developing a game and the blind playtesting side of developing a game to the total sending a game out to somebody for a preview, a review, a write-up or whatever, and being able to leave them alone, knowing they're successfully going to be able to play the game correctly. And Ian's point was that it happens too many times now that he seems to get the playtest version of the game, which is the game where the developer is, or the designer is standing over them and able to point out the bits where you're getting stuck on the rules. And it's a big leap, it's a big kind of leap between the two. But it's just it's kind of like, I'm a previewer, this is how you can help me kind of preview your game and not have to spend half my time kind of deciphering the rules kind of thing. So I think it's really important that somebody they can read the rules, but they can also get a really good idea of what your game's about by, reading 5 sentences. I think that's really, really important.
The best way that I've been able to do it is I've written my rules because I know the game inside and out. It's very hard for me to not want to tell you everything, but I've iterated the rules myself all the way through the process as well, from having really ridiculous sets of rules with tons of writing and down to listening to absolutely everything someone said when they've asked how to play, to be able to develop what's the most necessary thing that they need to know as they're reading it. And then also a very good thing is to then give that to somebody else to read it and see if they understand it, and then for them to rewrite your rules so that your majority of players can play it without needing to find the online videos or ask somebody who has already played it. Yeah.
No, as I say, I think that's one. Do you know what? I think that's one of the key causes for people to put a game back and play it another time, because
Definitely.
I mean, like a 3 hour, if you got a 3 hour window to play a game, and if it's a game that you've not played before, if it's a heavier board game, I'm automatically sacrificing an hour. I know I'm automatically going to be putting an hour away into kind of like reading the rule book and stuff like that. I know that I'm not going to be ending up kind of playing it. I know that I'm going to probably potentially have to rake through the rule book again and again and again. So yeah, I think it's kind of like, again, smaller games, you want to dive in. I guess it's worse if you try to play a smaller game and you stumble on the rules, because generally they're just there. There's like a page in front of you, and if you mess it up completely, if you don't get it right, then that person's just gonna. They potentially, it's not a case they might not play it again. They might just stick it in a charity shop. I spent a tenner on this.
I went to a board game evening a couple of weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I was playing games with people I'd never met before,
Mm-hmm.
and we saw this game, and it was really innovative and amazing and cool and quirky, and we decided we wanted to play it, and we literally read the rules, and then it was over in 2 seconds. We were like, we're obviously not playing this, right?
Mm.
And it was so confusing, and it only had like 2 pages worth of rules, and it was just a placement of how they've laid everything out, because they had right at the very top next to the title, there's actually 2 games here. But what we did was we didn't read that bit. We read from how to play all the way through both sets of rules, and then didn't understand why it went so fast, or we weren't playing it right.
Yeah.
So it's very important, because we kind of were like, oh, we kind of like the concept, but it's a shame we didn't get it.
Yeah.
So we never played again.
Just like, get out, don't come back. But I mean, have you got?
It is important though.
But have you got kind of had to develop that mindset, because you're not dealing with, like you said yourself, you're maybe not going into a board game cafe and putting Quirk on the table. You're maybe, you're going into any other places more, I don't know, maybe less guys that would be expecting to kind of, I'm here for the duration, I'm here for the next 5 hours, give me a 52-page rule book and give me 157 miniatures and counters and stuff like that. So it's a kind of, you must be focused on, I know I'm going into places where Quirk has to grab these people extremely quickly, because this buyer is in the toys and games department. They are looking at the next version of Guess Who. They're looking at the next, they're looking at Don't Step in That, or whatever that game was that won the Innovation Award.
From what you're saying there, I mean, it comes to a really basic principle in business, which is, if you can describe it to a 5-year-old, then it's going to work. And you should be doing that with almost everything. One of the things I can say, like when it comes to copy, and that it's the same thing. We we made the copy so easy a 5-year-old could read it. And it's another, again, this is when I say, when you look at things as you're trying to sell them, you sell them in a more difficult way than someone will understand to buy it. So, I mean, I use words like, you can become a trendsetter and embarrass everyone because, it levels the playing field. But those words, whilst they might seem quite easy to us, are actually words that would turn someone off if they're thinking, I want to buy this for my 5-year-old.
Yeah.
At the same time, if you are selling to somebody that, even if they are in their 30s or 40s and they want to buy a game, if you're talking in a language that everybody can read at, then you're more likely to sell a game. And there's a lot of people that want to use really cool, difficult words because maybe their game is a bit more strategic and all of that. Like, you can say strategic and stuff, but don't make it so complicated that someone's going to be like, no, that's going to be too hard for me to play. You want to give them as much ease as possible as you're trying to sell. But in answer to your question, as I've been developing, there's always been new questions on my mind. So like it started off with, okay, I'm in front of people, we're testing this in a board game cafe. I'm asking them loads of different questions from if they like the game to how much would they pay for the game if it was in certain types of packaging, to the point where I started selling to retail. And then the worry I got was, will it sell if it's on the shelf? Will it sell if it's next to Exploding Kittens? what's that factor that's going to make it sell and jump off the shelf for someone else? So I then start asking those questions. So you might have seen now from the last couple of weeks, I've redesigned all the packaging. So now Quirk's green and Legends is purple. There's characters on the box, there's hidden characters. The words on the back they're easier to see, and there's pictures on the back as well. So it's everything kind of goes into asking a lot of questions as you build that journey. Yeah. But then I've been lucky enough to work on just one game and replicate that process into 2 new games.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's the danger of people having to, as you say, there's the Kickstarter side of things where you're looking for kind of like the next game to kickstart or develop the game to kickstart. And I think in some cases, some of the creators don't get to the level where you're at, where you're now thinking, well, I need to think about kind of accessibility. I need to think about how is it going to look on the shelf. I need to look at the kind of like pitching this to people who don't normally play kind of this level of board games. That's what I mean. I think is like you're kind of on. I wouldn't put you right in the middle of or even the kind of the side of the I guess the board game hobbyist kind of circle. I don't mean that to be an insult, because you're obviously doing things in such a different way. I couldn't imagine sitting down and maybe having this conversation with maybe a few guys that we've had on regarding Kickstarter, because to them it's more, and I've said this before, it's more like a passion project. They're not looking to get it sitting on the shelf at Tesco's. They're looking at just getting the thing made because they've spent.
That's the thing that I keep seeing. The thing that keeps coming up time and time again is that there is a big difference in what your goal is with designing a game. Yeah. Some people do just want to make the thing that they're really passionate about. They played it with their friends and they want to get it out there for a few other people. Yeah. There are some people that do want to get in the shops and they're wondering, how do I do that? And then there are people that are continuously building more and more games. I am slightly worried for some of these companies that they do actually want to become a company, but they're running Kickstarter campaigns over and over again because it's becoming an unsustainable method in building board games. And even people that have been very popular with some of their games and they're launching their new games are finding it more difficult to keep getting backed. And one thing that I'm very concerned about is when you're launching a game, and since there's been so many delays on Kickstarter at the moment, you launch a game and then you're launching your second game but haven't delivered on the first one.
Yes.
And I mean, that's a concern for me because I'm always thinking of my consumer, and as a consumer I'm thinking, well, why are you doing your next thing when you haven't fulfilled your first thing? And knowing that most people are running their board game companies as well as having a full-time job, you're thinking, how can you stretch yourself so thin to be able to develop the next thing? So you have to have a very, very good plan and probably a lot of people around you to be able to pull something off like that. Because
they don't tell you what running is like. I mean, you talk about kind of like everybody talks about stretch goals and everybody talks about marketing, but nobody actually talks to you about being absolutely paranoid about making sure that comments are being answered to, or that if you send a message to somebody and they message you back, you're then messaging them back just to say thank you. That you're not ignoring anything. That you're balancing kind of like your updates and not kind of updating too much or maybe updating too little, or how you present yourself on social media if things are going badly, or how you present yourself on social media when things are going well. That you don't come across like, hey, look at me kind of thing. It's all this different thing. And it'll be an interesting conversation to have in a couple of months' time once I'm finished with my little
your experiment's going very well.
Ramshackled experiment. It's just an experiment.
You'll probably agree that when you're looking at Kickstarter, I think some of the things that people think is, okay, I'll just do a Kickstarter and then I'll fund something, then I'll be able to make my game. But as soon as you hit that launch button, suddenly people are putting money in and you're obligated to fulfill something. And that's a different emotion for you just going, oh, I'm going to make a load of money. Because now you're thinking about people.
Yeah, totally. It's like you need to, you get the fear, I think. you start to think about, you start to do sums in your head, and then you start to, even before, it's really fun, because it's not like, I don't know, look at Patreon, okay? Yeah? Patreon is about people continually kind of providing funding in order to help almost kind of sustain what you're doing as a content creator. You know, some people provide kind of like different things. They provide kind of like upfront content. They provide kind of like special access. They do like one-on-ones. You know, but it's kind of like, it's not an it's kind of like people will apologise and they'll say, "Oh, I didn't do much this month. I'm sorry. I'll not bother collecting your kind of money." Kickstarter, you don't sit there and go, "Wow, look at this money. What am I getting?" And you don't get the kind of the Scrooge McDuck diving into piles of coins kind of thing in your head. You get almost the opposite side of things, which you're the accountant sitting there with that kind of the accountant machine with a handle going, right, okay, well, this is going to cost this and this is going to cost this. And all of a sudden, kind of like stretch goals become like, they don't become fun and exciting. They become, I've really got to calculate
how much
this.
Is it going to cost?
What is this going to be? Can I give this to everybody? I know I'm trying to be kind.
And that's the whole thing.
Know.
When you are building a campaign, you already have to have those stretch goals in mind. So if you hit a certain amount of money, you already know you can fulfill it. And I think that's it. You work backwards. You go, right, this is, and it's kind of a bad way in a way, unless you get a lot of value out of it. That you have to build a complete game and then start taking things out to say, okay, we can't afford to have all these lectures, but what we can have is this base game. And then if we get to those stretch goals, then we'll add it to the game. But then that also helps you to climb to a number that you actually do want to reach that can produce a really amazing game. And also there's this other side of things where now consumers on Kickstarter are starting to expect, oh, now you've stretched, hit your goal, you're going over, you have to provide us with stretch goals because we want something to be excited about. And if you're running a campaign too long and you're not giving stretch goals, then you're going to start to lose people because you're not there for them. And I kind of want to move away from Kickstarter for that, in that respect, but then that's also the reason I do small campaigns, because I would not be able to keep up with stretch goals.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to just add, should I be talking about this pandemic method in this episode? I don't know if I talked about it in the last one. Of what that actually is. You kind of
mentioned a little bit, but it's fine. It was, and we were talking about it in the last, kind of like the last episode.
What I spoke about in the last one was how you niche in Amazon.
Yes.
I don't know if I mentioned how you use the pandemic game in order to build a very successful product or business.
I think, do you know what we do? Is we leave it for the next time you come back. Because, do you know, that's one of the things about running anything successful is you leave everybody going, what was that? What were they going to talk about? And then you say, tune in next week.
Oh, because it has everything to do with what I mentioned about Seth Godin's book that I'm reading at the moment. Because I thought, you know what, I've got this really unique method of how I enter the market. And then I read his book, and he basically describes it in business terms. And I'm just like, oh, why have I written this book before him?
Oh dear, you could have just written that book instead, and you would have been fantastic.
I might still write something.
You should write something.
Because I think, just a shout out to Hercules Games, because he has mentioned this to me, that there is a gap in how people think in game design and how people think in business, and having those materials of how do you build a product and take it to market. That is a game product.
Absolutely.
And I talk about things in games, in game terms, by using game mechanics to build a business upon.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, let's put this out there, that you will come back on in February, okay?
Yep.
And we will chat all this through.
I'm very busy in February, so pick your moment right.
All right, then. Well, I might be busy as well, you know. Hey.
I'm sure I'll still be on Twitter.
It was going so well, and then you had to drop. Well, I might be doing other things. Thanks very much.
No, I'm doing something. There's something happening in February that's going to be massive for Quirk. So yeah, another cliffhanger.
There's a cliffhanger and a half. if people are wanting to find you on the internet webs, where do we find you on the internet webs?
You can find me at Emmerse Studio on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram.
Okay.
Or you can go to my website at www.quirkthegame.com.
Awesome. I'll put all those links in the show notes, so we've got notes to show. Thanks very much for coming on. It's to be continued. It is definitely to be continued.
Do you know what? I thought this would be a bit more of a poking fun at each other podcast, but we've actually talked about some very pressing issues within the games industry. And that's very helpful.
Yeah, exactly. So,
but that's kind of what I want to do. I when I do interviews like this, I would prefer to do stuff that's going to help other people.
Exactly. So it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
No, as I say, thank you very much for coming on. If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, go to Google, search We're Not Wizards, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Apparently Tumblr's died. Who knew? But you can also see us on your podcast catchers. You Stitcher and Spreaker and Acast and all these other places. I think there's one called Overbox or something. There's just Castbox is one of them. Spotify, we're on Spotify if you want to catch us there. If you like what you've listened to tonight, there's 2 things you can do, actually. Tell somebody else. If you see somebody on YouTube, if you see somebody on Facebook or Twitter saying, I'm looking for a podcast, and if you don't like them, then send them our way. It's kind of like some kind of, passive-aggressive kind of...
Infect your brilliance.
Something like that. Infect something anyway. If you like us even...
Infect your brilliance.
Stop it. And if you like what you've listened to, as I said, then also consider going to Apple Podcasts. You've ruined my flow. And drop us a subscription or a review. Stop it. And if you like us even more than that,
subscribe.
Stop it. You can give us a rating. Remember, don't give us 10 stars because that makes us extremely big-headed, and don't give us 1 because that makes us cry. Give us 5 because it's in the middle. It's a little bit average. But the person who's been a complete pain in the butt.
Yay!
The Pogtastic. Will you stop that? It's Emma from Emmerse Studios. There's only two more things to do. The first thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Emma?
Sometimes.
Thanks.
Play Quirk and you can sometimes be a wizard.
Play Quirk and you can play Quirk. Because you can sometimes be a wizard. And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it's goodbye from Emma. Say goodbye, Emma.
Bye.
It's goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll6s.com. And go get Quirk. It's on Amazon. $12.99. It's Prime. You can get it next day. It's incredibly good fun to kind of be making faces and in different places and try to get people... take cards off people by guessing, and doing impressions and stuff like that. Noises, faces, places.
And stealing their quirks.
Stealing their quirks, that's what it is. But until the next time, goodbye.